We are live.
This is it?
This is it.
Okay.
We're live.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Caravan, would you like to tell our lovely community here what's happening in this moment?
Well, this episode is called Journey's End. Well, you know, someone wise once said there are no goodbyes, there are only see you laters. So
this is a see you later episode for now.
yeah.
And our final episode of the podcast.
Yeah, this marks a break for us, at least, in working on this podcast, because we are. Well, I feel like in some ways we kind of said what we wanted to say. I mean, we could keep saying the same things, but we kind of said it all. And we talked a little bit about the spiritual part of life and the everyday nature of life and friendships, sexuality, job, money. We've kind of been almost everywhere. And we talked about energy, which is, I think, the most important thing, because everything comes back to energy. And and I think when I look back, for me, one of the most interesting things is that the conscious caravan was a journey for us as well. It was very much a journey of us two guys. And did we meet last year? You say, is that?
It was like this time, a little bit early in the year.
It was like February or something, right?
Yeah.
Or
yeah. So it wasn't too much longer than a year.
That's amazing. That's just unbelievable. It feels like I've known you for at least 5 years.
I would say a decade. Like
yeah,
it's
you've done so much.
Yeah, it's something quite special. Like how I feel towards you, Torben, and I feel about like that we have created this together, and that we have shared these conversations with you. And I feel kind of like a little bit sad right now that like this is coming to an end, and it's just like a part of me is like, no, I don't want this to end. And I know like everything has a cycle of life, like a birth and life and death, and perhaps that this is that moment of it ending, and it's just I feel very grateful for the conversations that we've had and the energy that we've shared, and that we've shared to all the people listening in along the journey. And so much growth, so much learning.
I can't believe it's been a year.
Yeah,
that makes no sense to my mind.
No, the mind doesn't make sense, right? Spiritually speaking, I feel like I've put on like a decade as well. It's like
put on 10 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so grateful for you entering my life, Torben, and having this space to create this energy, or the energy that we've had, and see ourselves be reflected in that as mirrors, and grow and spiritually deepen or heighten, however you want to look at it.
I wanna take things back a little bit. I want to reminisce a little bit.
Yes, let's do that.
So if we think back, I remember it was somewhere in February or something. I was posting on LinkedIn, which is social media platform, and I was trying to push some spirituality out there. It was like mostly suits and very corporate people, but I had pushed a few spiritual posts out there, and people were responding really well. A lot of people were saying, we need that here, so please stay, because I was about to go again, because I didn't really feel like it was a place for me, but it did make sense to me to push it in where it was needed. And other social medias at the time were not interesting. Facebook was sort of a chaotic thing, still is. I don't think it's a very high vibrational place sometimes, because people are so I saw a post you wrote. Before this I had prayed to the universe. I had said I want to do the spiritual path. I want to teach people about spirituality, but I want someone to do it with, because I don't think it's fun to do it alone. That's not for me. And then I saw a post from yours. I don't know what it was about, actually.
Probably something to do with internationals.
Right, because you were very much internationals at that point.
Still am.
Still am.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what possessed me to write this, but I was just like, something, let's collab or something.
You just said, wanna collab. And at first I was like, who's this guy who wants to collab? Like collaborate? Like, oh, okay, like, yeah. And just being very kind of like open to the universe, but also open to like meeting people and just kind of finding my way, and being fresh to LinkedIn as well, and just kind of like, I was just like, yeah, sure, let's, not knowing anything, not knowing that this would be created from that. Isn't that cool to like reflect about like that? Just that one comment can open up this whole friendship and this whole spiritual kind of conscious caravan podcast, and it's just like, that's pretty amazing.
It is amazing. It feels like that kind of stuff can't be coincidence.
No,
I don't believe it can.
Yeah.
And so after that we started talking. I don't remember any of the things we talked about, but we met up pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, you came and visited.
Yeah, on your initiative. Did we go to the yurt?
Yeah.
The first time, I think.
Yeah. And I remember like when you first visited, and I thought this was very different or unusual to be with somebody in this way. But I remember we were sitting on the couch having tea. I'm like, well, we don't have tea right now. That's why this was the one. We were sitting on the couch having tea, and I was doing the classic Jonathan thing, like smiling, just being really nice and stuff.
Asking questions.
Yeah. And you just like looked at me and you just like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said something along the lines of like, can you just drop the mask? Like, and I'm just like,
on our first meeting.
What? And you just like, you're trying to be nice or something, but I feel, and you're like, I sense and feel something else. And it was just like, there was all of a sudden, there's just this opening of this space. And I think I don't know if I cried in that moment, but I definitely felt like crying.
Yeah.
And that was just such a beautiful thing, a way to be kind of, held, or just kind of to be seen. I think that was really what it was. Like you saw through that like niceness or stuff, and I think that really kind of was the entry into our friendship and connection. And it was just like that really kind of
And it was scary. I was
super scary.
I was considering whether I should do it or not.
Whether you should say that,
because I saw you were presenting this to me, and you were feeling this.
Yeah.
And I could tell you were sad, and I was like, if we're gonna have true connection, we're gonna have to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, it means I have to say that you're not being yourself, but I also have to make you aware that the fact that you're sad, which is something most people don't like to be.
Yeah.
So I was like, once again called to present, difficult truth, but at the same time I had this urge. I always have this urge to I want to meet people where they are. You know, I want to connect with them directly.
Give me the authenticity.
Give me
the real.
Give me the juice. You know, I'm so compelled to connect directly with people.
Yeah, yeah.
And
luckily, I was open to receive that. Right?
You were, and that's when I found out that you are incredibly courageous, incredibly honest and sincere and genuine. And if you're challenged, you immediately rise to that challenge. If you're challenged, you're like, and then you come back, and then you're like, okay, if someone opens a new space for you, you're like, then you just jump into it. You're like, I didn't see it, but I saw it now, so I'm gonna jump into it. You just do that. You rise indefinitely to challenges, which you were one of the first people I met, other than my brother, who when you saw an opportunity to grow, you did it. And nowadays I'm surrounded by those kinds of people, but took decades to find them.
I feel really honored and really thankful that you say this right now, Tara. That means a lot. You notice that?
It's very rare in this world to have people that when they see a mistake or they see an opportunity, they take it. You know, but there are people like that.
I guess it's a willingness, right? The willingness to.
Yeah, and I want to say from my own experience that I wasn't always like that. So if you're listening to this, if you resonate with that value, you should know that it's something you can build for yourself. Anyone can become. It's not. I wasn't born with it. I don't know if you were born with it, but it can be cultivated.
I was born pretty pure, and then culture and parenting and all sorts of stuff took me off off that, and then now it's finding my way back. Right? This is
the eternal message, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I was born pure, but you know, I was tarnished by the world. You know, we're all born as Buddhas. And you can, if you see a baby, you can see that the baby has no fixations. It's just fluid.
It's fully aware.
It's fully aware to a frightening degree. And it just stares into your soul.
It's just deeply, right? Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful. I actually have like a three-month-year-old at home, and that's, I think, one of the most beautiful things is feeling his presence and him radiating this like just this pureness. Like there's so much joy in that, so much kind of presence. You know what? So when I also remember we went up to the yurt that day. That was very fun. Yeah, that was a big experience.
Yeah, I have trouble recalling it. What do you recall?
I just recall the energy, and I recall like being up there and just having this vibrance of like being together and like and just creating this. Well, there was like both of our energies there, but there was this spiritual energy that was kind of like binding us.
That day the yurt had a spiritual vibration for me as well. I could clearly feel it.
Yeah, I can even feel it when we're talking about it now. It's just like it was there.
Something permeated the space.
Definitely.
It was full of something.
And I think in that moment, and just like, and it's just been a continuation from that day onwards. Every time we've met and every time we've had conversations and you've joined in these conversations and heard us talk in this podcast. It's like I love that, you know, you see through the words. You sense like the energy, or you sense you sense, right? And you can see what's going on in that person, in me, for example. And a lot of the times when we talk, you reflect back like my own energy, and I felt like I feel and have felt very seen in that, and I'm very grateful for that in you, Torben, and just that spiritual deepness that you give. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like that's one of the things. Is like I feel like for both of us, it was a process of stripping off layers and becoming more vulnerable and authentic.
Yeah.
And and when I was talking with you, sometimes I would share something with you because I could see that talking to you and you reflecting back to me, I could see there was a part of myself that I wasn't showing. I could see that I was hiding something behind something, and through that, I became more and more naked with your help, so to speak, which sounds funny, but we shared a lot of layers together.
Definitely.
So that was also, it was a process, and one of the things that I used to hide behind this spiritual wise person or something, like I used that image to hide behind. I was hiding myself behind it because I didn't really want to be I didn't want to be in the world as such a vulnerable and sensitive person that I am, because from the ego's perspective, the way I'm built, I'm quite weak because I'm quite sensitive, so I'm weak in a way. Perhaps not nowadays, we don't see that as true weakness, but today perhaps we see it as strength. But from the ego's point of view, I'm quite a softie. So the spiritual ego was something I used to protect myself, and we do that a lot. And I think most people will go through that in some way or another. And I even think that's fine. I think maybe it's part of the journey. Some people call it spiritual bypassing, which is also a thing, is when you use spirituality as a kind of a shield. And what I think is so interesting about the Conscious Caravan is to see me go from that guy, the wise spiritual guy, to becoming more and more just Torbjørn, just myself, more vulnerable, more not knowing, and also just more appreciating you more and giving you space more, because I starting to understand that I wasn't, yelling wisdom from the mountains. I was sharing the space with you. I was being a friend with a friend, and the Conscious Caravan, what that taught me first and foremost is that I believe that the future, the so-called master, is gone, and now instead there is the friend. And that's what we talked about, and what I think we'll be working on in the future when we do get to that. Because right now you're focusing on family and I'm focusing on other stuff, but I think that will be to be
like the energy circle that you've talked about.
Like the energy circles, it's like to be a friend, to be there as a friend with people. I think that's a greater energy in many ways.
Yeah.
Because I think the master, it was kind of a residue from an older hierarchical, patriarchal kind of way to look at culture. I think I don't think it's necessary, and I even think it lowers the energy in some ways.
When you say like spiritual friend, I also get this kind of sense of like a guide.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like a spiritual guide. That's how I kind of hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just my. I don't know. But either way, it's more about being on a similar wavelength, and maybe you can see things in the other person, or see, simply see them in a way that they don't see themselves. So it's also about like kind of as you would with a friend.
Yeah.
Like being there for them in that way and supporting them in that when they're ready, of course.
And I think that's what you do with good friends. That's what I see in my life is good friends are continuously reflecting their own light back at each other.
Like we often talk about, like being a mirror, right? It's
like we do, and sometimes on a lower level as well for other friendships. Maybe you're not doing it on such a deep spiritual level, but you're still trying to make them be the best version of themselves, and
100%.
in different ways.
Yeah.
Both in good behavior, but also in self-compassion, and in all ways reflecting the light back.
Yeah.
I think that's what being a true friend is about.
Reflecting the light back. It's just...
reminding each other. I've done that with you a few times, and you've done that with me as well. Reminding us that of the light.
But I feel like, if I'm just being real honest here, I feel like when we do get in these conversations, it's like that just seems to just happen for us, like
Yeah.
in the podcast, but also out of the podcast, in conversations, we like raise each other's energy or mirror each other's energy, or something happens in the spiritual space between us that kind of like lifts or something. It's quite I don't experience that with everyone, by the way, but with you I definitely do, and that's something I'm just like I really hold dearly. So
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is for people out there who want their own spiritual friends, because I think we are spiritual friends. Sometimes I call it like a Dharma brother or a Dharma sister.
I love that.
Which is
cool as.
Which is another way to say it, is someone you're on the path with.
Yeah.
I think if you want to get to that point, it really comes down to vulnerability.
Yeah, and in that, like, somebody you can have in your life that has your back, you could say, or then you can that they can be a container for you and you for them. And when I say a container, like, you can literally share anything with them.
Yeah.
You can share your emotion, you can share your sadness, your joys, your pain, your sex life, you're everything, and you know that they have you, you know, like that will be okay, whatever shared. And that just like means so much to have somebody, at least just one person in your life that you have like that.
Yeah.
A spiritual Dharma brother or sister or a friend. It's just profound.
Someone who will hold space for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at least what I notice, it means so much where you feel not judged in that, and that like it's okay, you know, to share that. And I think that's something I've really experienced with you too, and it's like, and I really kind of just relate to that, you know, there's this softness, there's this kind of like big-heartedness in both, like I experienced in both of us, and growing up, that was like seen as a serious weakness.
Yeah.
And that was like just pulled apart, right? And it's like when you're with and on all that, like I think really, like, isn't everyone to some degree like sensitive in themselves?
It's something I've always thought about.
And
I think so.
Like, we're all human. We all feel. We all have emotions. We all think a lot sometimes, and we get caught up in that. And it's just like, and where's the space in our with the people in our lives to share that emotion, to share whatever you want to share, and for it to be okay. And I think that is like that means so much. So I'm really just want to kind of acknowledge that and honor that.
And the funny thing is that's you turn that on me, but you were the one that taught me these things. Like when I met you, what confounded me about you was that you were just Jonathan. Like, and I'm like that as well. Now I'm just talking. I didn't used to be like that. I learned it from you. You were in the world in such a vulnerable way. You were like, you were just like announcing to the world, you know, I am not some all-powerful being. I'm a soft, simple, fragile, sinful person who is far from perfect. You were that way in the world, and you were transparent about it. And that reflected so hard, because I was like,
because you're coming from this other
because I was like, I'm not doing that at all. And that's one of the ways that peeled back layers back for me, because you were embarrassing me by reflecting that to me. Really? And sometimes in life, you know, we get embarrassed by that, and then it's so important to use that embarrassment as a purpose for growth, and not to shut the person out, to close off the embarrassment, to get away from it. Because you were just Jonathan in the world. You weren't trying to be a big man or anything. And when I hear about your story, where you come from, I have no idea how you managed to do that without any help. But I I needed to see you do it before I could do it. So you very much helped me get into a more vulnerable state because you were running around in the world unprotected, you know. And I had tried, and I had tried to be unprotected before that, but never to that degree.
Yeah, it's not easy, that's for sure. I'm just like, I just feel so moved right now that all that you reflect back right now. It's beautiful.
And you taught me something else as well, which was, I remember I was telling you something about my mother who I've had problems with, and I was expressing something which I felt was kind of a shameful opinion because there was something I was angry about or something. I felt a little ashamed of it afterwards, but I remember that you just listened to me. You didn't judge at all. Like there was no judgment at all. And then an hour or two after that, I looked back and I was like, because you did that, it was almost like I gained a second level of awareness. And suddenly I realized I'm holding on to something negative in myself. I'm holding on to an anger here that's not good for me. But what was so incredible for me, what you did that without doing anything. And that's when I understood for the first time, when they talk about in spirituality, that when the master does nothing, there is nothing that she does not do. She leaves nothing undone by not doing anything. And for the first time, I understood how all the spiritual masters, they talk about how doing nothing does everything. Because in that moment, you just listened to me without judging, and I fixed myself. But I couldn't have done it without you, because a normal person would have either agreed with me in my anger or maybe told me that it was a bad thing to do or suggested something, whatever. But you didn't. You just held the space. And that allowed my mind to become more intelligent. And it was like, and it started looking, it was like, we are holding on to something that's draining us downwards. It was like, oh, we gotta let go of this. That was only possible because you didn't judge me anyway. And so you showed me, and still today, you know, I try this, but you know, it's hard not to give advice. Still today, I practice doing this, just being, and I'm learning to just let people be and let space work. But you showed me for the first time that you don't have to do anything to get things done. You showed me non-doing.
The container. Non-doing. Wow.
And I remember another thing that fascinated about me was you always came across so sweet and unprotected and gentle and all this stuff. But then sometimes you'd ask these piercing questions out of nowhere. And I'd just be like, whoa, where did that came from? And I was like, wow, that was deep. You know, it was just like, that's why once I thought you were like, when I mistook you for being like a Capricorn, was because you had, you know, you have those, sometimes you just, you know, dead center. You just get a shot from nowhere. And I love that you're such a sweet soul, but then there's the truth is so direct at the same time. And I love that contrast because it's complementary and it brings together opposites, you know. It's the sword and the silk, you know, together.
The water and the fire.
Yeah. So I, you know, in many ways, you know, I came in thinking I was the bee's knees, but you showed me that with your softness and your sincerity and your earnestness, you showed me that, you know, it's to go walk around and be a big man. That's not strength, that's weakness. To be strong is to just be the softy that you are. And then when you embrace that, you find out that this softness is actually quite elastic. It's rubber. It can take anything, but you have to embrace it first. And you find out that this fabric is incredibly durable because it can move. Whereas the hard stuff, if it breaks, you're broken.
This is like the unbreakable.
Yeah.
Something that came to me. I just want to say thank you. I feel like I'm just like receiving all this like like this kind of like, yeah, it feels really beautiful to receive. And I hear you, so thank you. Thank you, Joy. When you were sharing just now, there's something that kind of came to me, and that's like I think it's just going back to this thing of being seen, but it's also, there's also like a layer in there, and there's something that I really just notice about you two in how you've like been there to support me in things that are like I don't always ask for. And so something like I think something that like I notice is that at times like I can like talk myself down, or maybe not even just like acknowledge the things that is going on inside, or like kind of I guess this is like proudness or whatever it is, and just kind of like push it down or whatever. And I'm like, I just feel like there's so many times with us that you really just encourage me to be me, and you encourage me to kind of let that place inside of me shine, and to follow or to trust in myself, and trust in my own, like trust and trust, right? And remember that moment, trust and trust that week. That was such a hard
week of trust.
A week of trust. It was so hard, but I really committed to that, and that came from you, and that was like, there was something so profound in that, so moving, and something I hold on to as well, or like kind of bring in, and that's I think it actually comes back to this place of self-worth, really, like if I look at it. And it's this like thing of like yeah, there's a lot to that, but it's maybe not going to go into that right now. But it's this thing of like self-worth, and just kind of like it's okay. Like you've really encouraged me or reinforced that it's okay to you know, to be who you are. It's okay to trust in yourself, and let that guide you, and follow that, and listen to yourself. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, but it's just that has had such a big influence over this last year, and I've been just open about this, but I've been really challenged with that, like moving to Denmark, this new kind of feels like somewhat of like shedding this like old identity, and like and then like you're here, and it's just like finding the way with that, and these conversations and you being in my life has just really helped, I guess, if you want to say, for better words, to be okay expressing myself for who I am. And to be authentic, and to kind of and you're just encouraging that in all aspects of my life, in my relationship, in my work, as a father, all these aspects of just like listening to the truth, listening to the spiritual part of self, and following that intuition, that intuitive place that we all have within ourselves, and from that, like you cultivate that in your with other people, I guess. And the way I see that, how it's played out, is like how I open my heart to people these days, and how I connect, and how through opening my heart and opening that deeper emotional part of myself has such a profound energy and vibration with how I meet other people and how I can hold other people, and that's through like this deeper work on self. And yeah, like that's, you've just always supported me in that, so I'm just really grateful. So I mean, yeah.
You're one of those rare like people who are, you're just a good person, you know.
You're just a good person.
You're just like, you're fundamentally good.
I don't.
And so I've just been wanting to hold that mirror up to you, because it's, you know, a healthy self-love is a must. We must love ourselves.
Yeah. Self-love, self-compassion.
The remnants of Christianity and other religions has made self-love a bad thing, but you need a healthy amount of it. Otherwise, there are things that don't work as they should.
Yeah. I think it's something that really speaks to me when you're saying that right now. Like self-love, it's also like at times putting yourself first. And,
indeed.
And that might seem selfish, but like you don't do that, you don't take care of your own energy. How does one give energy?
Yeah.
Like it's this balancing of like giving yourself self-love through many different things in your life, but giving space for that so that you can give, so that you have the energy to give. It's like this, it's a universal giving and receiving, right? Like there's an unlimited source or well of energy there. But if you're in here all the time, then you're not able to plug into that. And that's just like
the entry barrier is to put yourself first, and I would say always, because
always
I would say always put yourself first. Doesn't matter who you are, because if you put yourself first, you'll also know when you want to put yourself second. But it will be a choice.
Yeah,
it will be born out of choice, and when you sacrifice yourself, it will be because you want to do it.
Good example for me, that with like the kids, right?
Exactly.
Like that's definitely a choice.
But if you don't allow yourself to first put yourself first, even if you have kids and husband, wife, whatever,
yeah,
there will always be some resentment in the sacrifices you make.
Yeah, and that's something that's really, I noticed that's big.
That's big.
I notice like in my, but like there's a bitterness that comes in my life when I'm not putting myself first.
Yeah.
And that's something like you really reflected back or mirrored back in my life in personally, is like this thing of constantly being there for other people and like almost changing form to please or something. I don't know if that's the
shape changer,
but like to kind of make sure everything's like the other person's okay, and like and the craziest thing, it comes from such a good, or it personally came from such a good intent.
Yeah,
it has a good function, right? You want to, but the thing is, when you do that enough, and when I did that enough, I also became further away from myself, and so this like thing of putting myself first.
Eventually, you had less and less to give.
Yeah.
Eventually, you had
and more bitter. Like
eventually, all we have to give is bitterness.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to understand this in our current contemporary era, but you have to put yourself first.
And it's so fascinating from coming more often from that place. Like there's just been so much more like loving energy. And energy to give, like in Danish, like old school, right? Like it's
that's the big thing, is that if you consider yourself first, you'll find plenty of love for other people. But if you don't, you'll end up hating other people because they just seem to be there to take from you, and you already don't have anything.
To take from the beggar in the street, right? Like it's like, yeah.
And that's another thing, that another funny process in the was another thing that the podcast reflected back to me was like this. I saw this Torbjørn guy who thought he knew everything. And there was this Jonathan guy was like, oh, Torbjørn, you know so much, and you were so curious, and you were you were putting me up on the pedestal that I was already putting myself on.
Reinforcing.
And then a few episodes in, I was like,
hang on a second.
I was like, what is going on here? Like, I'm playing into some kind of bullshit here that I'm creating. And I'm like, and I'm not, and I remember I had a girlfriend at that time who I spoke to it. I've had a few girlfriends through the podcast. I don't think any more than 2. But through that, I was like, I'm not letting this guy talk. It was the first thing I realized.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not letting this guy talk, and I realized I'm reinforcing this idea that I know and he doesn't know. I started to realize that, and I was like, that's not good, because that's the easy. I'm already good at being the smart one, and you're already good at being the person who asks questions. That's not growth for us. But
that was a moment of change. That was a moment of like you being very conscious about that.
Yeah.
And going, okay, I'm gonna like, my mind wants me to say something, and I'm just gonna listen.
Yeah.
And that was hard. I remember that was hard for you in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you you worked at it, right? And it's so fascinating, like you just saying this right now in this moment, because I'm just like, wow, like that has been like a game changing growth through the both of us. Like you coming down from that place of like the master kind of mindset, you could say.
Yeah.
And giving more space for like for me in the like, I think it's not necessarily for me, but like the energy that's also coming from within, and that's been really cool. And
it was a great joy, because you were so reluctant at first. I remember the first we ever recorded. After we recorded, you were like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like the fact that we have to put this out for people, but I'll do it anyway. You're always like. You're always like, I don't like this, but I'll do it.
I'm dead.
That was your intention through all this, is like, I don't like this, I'm not ready for it, but I'll do it.
It's so fascinating you saying that right now, because I realized how uncomfortable that was in the beginning.
You were so uncomfortable.
And now I'm just like, actually, this is...
And quite a few episodes, we got really honest, and you were uncomfortable afterwards. And nowadays, it's just out there, and...
Yeah, it's much more okay. Yeah.
And that's something else that you told me. You told me things from your personal life. You revealed things to me that, gave me a lot of trust in you, and made me made me feel that. Well, you blessed me with some really intimate, not on the podcast, but in private, about things in your relationship, things you were struggling with. You were very transparent and all, and that was also very. It made me feel like we could trust each other, and that was a big thing to give, because
it goes both ways.
And especially in Danish culture, it's we don't really talk about what's not working. It's kind of. But what I wanted to talk about was this. It was once I understood that instead of being up on this pedestal and being like, oh, I'm the big guy, whatever. It was so much more. It was so much more juicy to see, what can I get out of this Jonathan guy? How can I facilitate his return to trusting himself more, to sharing his opinion, to speaking freely and intuitively, and to have confidence in himself. And I would start to ask you questions, and I would start to, remember the famous, what do you think, Jonathan? Because you were like, you would ask me.
Hand it back onto me.
And I was like, yeah, but I want to know because you had this pattern of always, you had this pleasing pattern of always asking what the other person thinks. And that's it's a very nice thing to do. But I was like, I started to realize I could help you come out of this thing you were hiding in, and stand fully in your own light. And that became a much greater source of joy than trying to elevate myself. It was like cultivating, how can I make you shine, because you spoke from the same place I spoke from anyway. And
you helped me see that.
I could help you see that at the same time, because you were saying the same things anyway. I discovered pretty quickly that you said the same things I said anyway. So the message got out.
Yeah. It's this well of
it's
spiritual energy.
It's we all speak from the same place, and it became much more giving thing to see you grow, and see you become more confident. And I mean, still today, you're not the most, self-displaying person, but that's also part of your personality and your charm. But you're much more willing to stand in your own light and your own confidence and your own opinions, and to walk your intuitive path and take intuitive actions.
Trust in that.
Yeah, and that's and to see you have that faith in yourself, and to dignify yourself in that way, to take your dignity back, was so much more fulfilling than just elevating myself and being this cold person. Because what I learned is, yeah, you can be a master, but it's really cold on the top. You're really alone up there. It's much more better to be shoulder to shoulder with the people.
And what I'm hearing in that, like, it's you, like, being of service.
Yeah.
You being of, like, with the person at their level, so that you can give, like, you can give to them, you can serve them.
Yeah.
In a way, and like in that way, it was like serving, like helping me reflect back, shining my light. Yeah. So to speak, or like kind of giving space for that. Giving space for that spiritual voice to kind of come through and intuitively kind of
because the master is a function, it's not a person, it's a function. And you didn't really know you had that function, so it was much more beautiful to see you explore
guide me to
And if you watch the podcast from start to finish, you see that growth. You taking more time, more space, and talking more comfortably, and I'm asking more questions. But you also see me struggling and talking a lot.
We both struggle.
because the temperament of my mind is to take up space and talk a lot. That's my challenge.
The cool thing is, though, in the podcast is these moments that we just like there's stillness. There's this kind of like. And even right now, it's like, for some people, it'd be like, what are they going to say? Like, there's this mind that's just like, I need them to say something.
And it's so.
But that's where the magic lies. That's where, like, the heart of there's so much in that space of stillness, and
And that's another thing. Like, I was like, when we were talking about it, I was telling you, like, I was like, we're gonna have a conversation, and we're gonna leave in silences. We're not gonna edit anything. We're not gonna make it interesting. We're gonna keep it rustic, and we want the depth. And at that time, it felt so like I was so nervous. I felt so nervous putting it out there, because I was like, this is crazy. People will think it's insane. And nowadays, it's only a year later. Nowadays, every conversation I have with anyone is like that, because now I understand the value of silence, and it's the same. We do it naturally, and all that came about through that. That's how I learned about that.
Wow!
And it was so scary at the start, because I was like, this is too far out.
Yeah.
Like, this is too people. People will go nuts. But these days, I couldn't imagine anything different.
Yeah. You know what the most fascinating thing is? That, like, just before we started the podcast, I had met this other very spiritual person, a lady, and she spent a lot of time in nature. Like, I think before I met her, she'd spent like 2 or 3 years just out with the trees, basically, in nature. And she did exactly the same thing. We'd be talking, and she would just stop, and she would just there'd be just silence, and so then when you did that as well, it's just like, it's like she wasn't there anymore. Like, and so that kind of, I think, I just wanted to share that. I also want to say, like, here we are talking about spirituality, and here we are talking about this space in between, and like talking about confidence and being your authentic self. Like, I just want to share, like, this is like all accessible to you, to anyone, to me, to you, to like this spiritual well that we talk of, this kind of speaking the same truth, or this kind of like intuitive thing that's going on. We all have that within ourselves, and sometimes, you know, you might be listening in, or sometimes I even think like I don't have that when I am with you sometimes, and it's just like it's something that I constantly remind myself that I have that, you have that, all 7 or 8 billion people in the planet have that.
You teach that to
waking up to that, right? Like,
you teach it to your clients a lot.
Yeah, without putting these words all the time, but sometimes
telling them to follow themselves, right? That's what you have to do.
Yeah. That's yes.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah. But also this trusting in this self that's like guiding you. Like, how much of our life do we go outside of ourselves to ask for the questions, and inside there's so much. I wouldn't say everything, but there is an enormous intelligence and awareness and presence and spirituality and guidance that we all have within ourselves. And it's like, tap into that source of knowing, that source of truth, and we really, I think that's been a lot. This podcast is, you know, talking about that, guiding people in that, like, sharing our energy so that you kind of feel that presence and hopefully feel that energy vibrating in yourself as you're listening into these conversations. And I just personally, I'm just like, I would just love for more people to wake up and to know that they have that in themselves. And so this is not the end of us, the Conscious Caravan. This is the end of this podcast in this moment. However, like, we still have a lot of energy to do things like in the future in person, at events or retreats or who knows what exactly yet. So you will see more of us, and we really
will see more of you.
We'll see more of you, and we really would love to invite you to come and share your energy in this, and be with us on this path of being a spiritual friend or a spiritual guide. Us being a spiritual guide. Anyway, like, kind of just being a part of this, and just a really big thank you to you that has been following.
Yeah, you made it to the end.
You made it to the end of this, and it's just like, man, how, like, I'm like, I feel grateful that you kind of like listen to 30 something hours of us talking about spirituality, and just like, it's been a journey. Yeah.
It's and that's when you look back and you watch this, you listen to this podcast, you're gonna see, you know, two people growing together.
Perhaps yourself growing as well, like as you take these things in, right?
Yeah, wherever you are on the path, you're ahead of us or behind us, or you're learning along with us. You'll see these two kids unfold a deeper understanding of themselves and each other and of the moment, and and on some level coming home, you know. In a greater degree. And you know, thinking back to what you just said, thinking back to my life before this, how many times have I bought and sold myself, you know? How many times have I spent years getting the wrong education for the wrong reasons? You know, how just imagine if I was a 20-year-old, 18-year-old, and I had listened to myself, what a life I would have lived.
You knew what you knew now, right?
What a life I would have lived, but
what would you give to your 20-year-old self if you were like being this where you are spiritually? And saying to your 20-year-old self, what would you?
I would just say that, you know, the whole thing is a game, so just play it, but remember to stand outside and look at it as well, you know. Just know that you're playing a game and enjoy the game.
Enjoy the game.
It's because it's a journey, but there is a part of you that is not on the journey, so remember that part.
There's a part of you. Wow. feel like I would say to my younger self, like, I would just get like a hand and just like place it on his heart and just like,
you're okay, kiddo.
I've got you, and like, you don't need to be so hard on yourself, and just like let go.
Yeah.
Trust, let go, and like, yeah. Notice. Yeah.
We leave you here with a blessing.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful.
That in this moment whatever we are capable of transmitting to you at this point in time, we transmit. And we recount the beautiful words of Buddha. The amazing thing about the spiritual life and of consciousness is that one flame can ignite 1,000 candles without becoming any less. And so we put our flame to your candle and hope that you will do the same for others. And in that way, we may one day light up the world. So
lovely, incredible note to finish on.
We thank you for now, and we'll see you.
We'll see you on the trail. We'll see you on the trail.
We'll see you on the trail.
Thanks for everything and for listening in to all of the Conscious Caravan. It's been one big journey, one big trail.
It's been one hell of a ride.
One hell of a ride.